Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you very much for registering and joining us today. Today is all about hotels and how to generate profitable bookings. We're talking for just half an hour today. It's currently 11 a.m. It's Thursday, the 6th of August. My name is Jane Pendlebury, and I am the CEO of HOSPA, the Hospitality Professionals Association. I'm delighted to be joined today by Tony Kelly and Samantha Bailey from Port Lympne Hotel and Reserve, as well as Samantha Williams from Profitroom. We hope to be taking some questions at the end, so please do use the question tabs in the GoToWebinar app. If there's not enough time to answer all or any of the queries, we will get back to you afterwards. And there will also be a recording and a summary of the key points available on the HOSPA website within the next day or so. So thank you for joining us. Welcome. And I'm going to start by handing over to Samantha from Profitroom.
Wonderful, thank you, Jane. Hello, everybody. So today we're going to talk about the success of short bookings and particularly the hospitality industry getting back on its feet. The Profitroom organisation, so for those of you that don't know us, we are a company dedicated into making hotels more profitable. We do that with a variety of products. So we can see here the Profitroom suite services from booking engines, channel managers, hospitality exclusive CRM and websites, and then through services like digital marketing and bespoke websites as well. I'm pleased as well to be joined by the Port Lympne team. So they have been hotel partners of Profitroom since 2017, and we'll come on to their success a little bit later. Something we wanted to cover first of all were some of the statistics we're seeing since the reopening of hospitality in particular. One of the first things we're going to look at is the search volume. So here it's taking a look at the history of the search volume by lots of different countries. As a company, we're quite lucky that we have a very strong European client base. We have not just hotels and resorts in the UK, but also in some other key European countries as well. Here we can see the spike in demand, and this is from the search time hotel. So we can see where it dropped off down here and then where it's starting to pick up. As we know, it's been a global impact, and it's almost comforting to see actually the spikes and the trends, almost mirroring where we were. The next section here is hotel traffic, and this is where we see the pickup of bookings again, because almost overnight, bookings bottom line for hotels and resorts. Here we can see on the 25th of March, so we went into lockdown here in the UK on the 23rd, and we can see there that the hotel traffic pretty much shrank to zero. We can see there 6 sessions on average. Over time, we can see where those sessions have increased, and they particularly spiked actually around press announcements or announcements of hospitality reopening. When Boris Johnson actually announced dates of when hotels could reopen, then traffic started to build, and we can see the steady increase of that traffic on this section as well. All of the statistics I'm sharing with you today are available on this live Corona dashboard via our website at Profitroom too. They do come directly from all of our data, so if you do want any live insights or an update on these stats at any time, please visit that page. The next section is looking at booking dynamics, and this focuses on year-on-year performance and actually compares the impact of direct and OTA bookings as well. A huge challenge for hoteliers, and this isn't a short-term challenge, this is something that has been around for a long time, is actually OTA reliance. So a lot of hotels struggle to become more profitable because their OTA bookings are taking up a huge chunk of actually their online reservations. Since the pandemic, we can see here the growth of bookings. So the top one, and this is using data from all of our 4,000 clients, are booking engine bookings. The bottom one are channel manager bookings. So they would have been from OTAs such as booking.com or even GDS bookings as well. We can see the growth of the bookings. It was the direct bookings that grew first. And we've identified that actually it comes down to trust. So people are not being as price-led anymore when they're looking for their stay, but actually they want the comfort of booking with the hotel directly. There has been, obviously in the press and the media, lots of concerns around OTA bookings and actually how they have been managed with cancellation policies. So now is definitely the time to focus on direct booking strategies. We can see here, so from our clients that we have in the UK, there was a huge surge of coastal demand. It's not uncommon, and all of our clients around Europe actually had a really big spike in domestic demand, particularly as countries went into lockdown themselves. We can see here that searches were up over 700% in terms of where they wanted to look. And this was a particularly large, after those press announcements, after the lockdown being closed, hotels reopening, things like that. Interestingly, we can see how that has affected direct bookings as well. We can see the mix here split into two different sectors. So we have the leisure on the left-hand side and the business on the right-hand side. Today, we're very much focusing on the success of the leisure, and we are seeing lots of success in the leisure, and it's very comforting to actually see hospitality rebuilding, and we've got a fantastic success story from Tony and Sam coming up. But it is still, you know, we can see business and corporate bookings definitely still struggling here. In terms of room nights, how does that look? So obviously with the domestic market increasing, we have seen an extended stay period for room nights. Taking a look at this by segments, again, we've got the leisure at the top and we've got business on the right-hand side. We can see just how much those room nights have increased, and these are room nights per booking. There are spikes as well. We can see here in booking spikes, and we can see that, interestingly, it's flipped a little bit. So bookings traditionally for the leisure sector, they would come in the evenings or the weekends, but with a lot of people perhaps on furlough or working from home, we're noticing more bookings coming in during the weekdays. So that's something else which we can take out of this data today as well. Over here, we've got some key takeaways. So hoteliers on average saw a 356% increase in booked revenue. And this booked revenue is the amount of the transactions taken through the booking engine. There are lots of different factors that played to this. Part of it would definitely be availability and occupancy. So in a typical circumstance, there probably wouldn't be as much availability to book for the next couple of weeks or couple of months. Obviously, where there's a demand in domestic as well, that definitely influenced it. We can see when in June, when things started to reopen, there was a 356% increase here. And then in July, that's still continuing to grow. The same can't be said, however, for business, but at least it is going in the right direction. In terms of business on the books for August, the resorts that we're speaking to, particularly in leisure and even more so in the coastal regions, and again, even more so for luxury hotels and resorts, occupancy is well into its 90s. I know Tony and Sam will come on to it in a moment for Port Lympne, but they've seen some really impressive results and actually now are pretty much full. So again, it's fantastic to hear. The typical booking season has also extended. So where hotels and resorts are fully booked in August, the extension of the summer has gone into September and October. And what we're seeing and the feedback we're getting from hotels is that we're giving them advice to perhaps change their rate strategies. Some hotels and resorts are even going back to rack rates or their top bar rates and recouping some of that lost revenue from the months before. That brings us on quite nicely to the revenue performance. So here we have the average booking rates. So overall, we can see the booking rates here for leisure and for business. And these are the average booking rates, not volume of bookings. And we can see how they've increased. Interestingly, although there isn't a lot of business bookings, the rates still have increased. And the leisure ones have increased as well. So on average, 32% there. Again, it's particularly evident in the luxury sector. And this comes down to now the purchasing decision. Profitroom launched a blog a couple of weeks ago, and it was quite interesting. It was about the booking dynamics and actually the flip of demand pricing. So before, customers would somewhat determine the price of a rate plan based on their demand, based on competitors, based on a really competitive market. However, now consumers are looking for safety, security, trust in the brand, and that's actually the factors which are coming through more, and that's again why hoteliers are being able to charge a much higher rate if they can provide that comfort to the consumer. Initially, we saw self-catering resorts grow first, but hotels have definitely caught up. And then, well, before we move on to Port Lympne, I think, Jane, we've got a little poll, haven't we, about dynamic packages? Oh.
Yes, we have indeed. So it should have just hopefully popped up on everyone's screen. So since reopening, have you sold more or less packages with inclusions such as dinner? And if you're able to select one of the following. So we're getting quite a few answers, which is interesting. I think I'll probably close that poll now because I think we've got a fairly consistent answer. So I'll just close that and share those results there. So an awful lot either doesn't apply or has stayed the same, but of those that have changed, 21% have sold more and 11% has sold less. So that's interesting. Does that play out in Port Lim as well, Tony?
Not so much. I think we as a resort have a kind of inclusive experience anyway. So one of the things that that played in here is that clearly with COVID restrictions being put in place, bookings needing to be required in restaurants and for animal experiences and animal feeds and what have you, we were much more conscious about the fact that we needed to get people's booked onto these things a lot quicker than we would normally have done. We'd let them arrive and then we'd try to book them onto whatever experiences or into whatever restaurants we may have. But we kind of put that about face, went after it fairly early, and so the experiences were booked before people got here in advance. In fact, you know, you've intimated already, yes, we are pretty full, but all of those experiences, all of those restaurants are pretty full as well now as well.
Okay.
Brilliant. And Tony, so from the statistics that we've shared today, do you agree with those? Are you seeing those patterns as well in terms of increased ADR, increased occupancy? How have you reacted as a business to that?
Yeah, I mean, we have. We're like everybody else, I guess, in the leisure sector. We're experiencing very high volumes of occupancy. You know, I think we're at 99.2% occupancy for August. We did pretty much the same in July, actually. So we really did hit the ground running. It was fabulous because obviously we lost 3 months. In terms of average rates, it hasn't been as strong as 30% in July and August, but there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that there was a fairly strong amount of business already on the books for those 2 months. People that had held on in the hope that they would get some kind of holiday in the summer. And so there wasn't that much where we could actually shift the rate as far as July and August were concerned. And plus, we had an awful lot of business that we put on credit for the March, April, May time and June. So we had to rebook that in, and because we couldn't, whereas we tried to get them into the new rates in July and August, we couldn't necessarily put everybody in on the new rates. I think the third reason as well is that a lot of our very premium accommodation, so the Lion and Tiger lodges, for instance, that is at the very top end of our rates, you know, £1,750 a night, £1,200 a night. They're sold well in advance anyway, and they're like hen's teeth, so you let those reservations go at your peril, really. So a lot of our premium stuff was already sold into those months. We had quite a lot of business on the books already that people were holding on, and we had to move the credit into those months as well. That said, if you now look at September and October, then we are much closer to a kind of 30% increase in ADR for September year on year, and I think it's more like 35% in October. So where we didn't have those factors playing in to those months later in the year, then we've been able to move the ADR and benefit from that demand that's out there.
I have to say, one of the things that my sales team are getting inundated with at the moment, we had 400 emails this weekend, and I'd say about 80% of them were people phoning in or emailing saying, your website's broken, I can't get booked for August. They're ignoring the sold out signs and they're still trying to book in. So we really have seen that absolute demand, and people still desperate to go on wait lists. It was interesting what you said, and definitely concur about the high-end accommodation going first. Literally, it's high-end, mid-tier, and then it's a tiny mop-up, and it's all been done organically. So definitely agree with all the trends that you said about earlier.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great to hear. We're seeing that across the board, actually. So even in hotels, the suites and the more expensive room types are definitely being sold first, which hasn't always been the case. It's great to hear some of your stories about reopening. Tony, what challenges did you face when reopening, other than having to move those bookings back into future months?
I've written more risk assessments in the last 6 weeks than I ever wanted to, but yeah, we're a charity as well. So the Aspinall Foundation is the umbrella organisation that owns the two parts here. So everything that we do is for the benefit of conservation purposes. And because of that, we do have a large number of volunteers, but like everybody, we furloughed the vast majority of our staff through the lockdown period. There's 600 acres here, there's 100 acres at Howlett. So when we came back, we realised that the weeds have grown quite substantially and there's an awful lot of work to do. So we put out a kind of DIY SOS appeal. And we had over 1,000 people volunteer to come in and help us get the parks back up and running. And we need them all, if the truth be known, because it took us quite some time. The business here is based around, obviously, the accommodation and the services that we do here in terms of hospitality, but we also have the day visitor side of what we do here at Port Lympne and at Howlett. They opened earlier, so they opened on the 15th of June, and they've been just as busy. We were inundated with guests on both those parks. But we had that kind of volunteer force that came in and helped us prepare the assets for opening. And then, as I say, we spent an awful lot of time trying to understand what the government meant by their various announcements, putting that into risk assessments, training the staff, getting everybody up and running again. And it was, it's been very challenging. And we appointed a compliance officer who's still working flat out, writing new risk assessments every time we get new announcements from Boris, checking up on what we're doing, answering people's complaints, because we are getting them, because people think that social distancing isn't being observed as well as it could be, but you cannot determine, you cannot tell the public, the general public, to social distance. You can't enforce it. So you are relying on them to a large degree. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of our management time is taking up in just trying to manage that, which is the biggest risk to our recovery, essentially. As long as we can manage through that and there's no local lockdowns, and we don't get an outbreak here in one of the restaurants or what have you, then we will recover from this a lot quicker than I ever thought we would when we were writing the cash flows back in the late days of March. So yeah, funny enough, we've done some work on it this morning, just reminding the management teams again that that is the risk to recovery, and we have to manage that as closely and as carefully as possible.
Yeah, definitely, and it's really great to hear that actually you're bouncing back a lot quicker than you thought as well. Speaking to, again, lots of hotels, and particularly in the 4 or 5 star sector, they're seeing the same results. So it's very encouraging, and bit by bit seeing everybody else follow those patterns.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that obviously a lot of your focus has been on the operational side of the business. How has having online technology, for example, the ones that we work together with at Profitroom, how has that helped you to make this reopening easier?
I suppose for my part, using Profitroom is probably fourfold. I think number one is usability. The team find it really easy to use. Secondly is the training programs available. They can use Academy, it supports the managers and training that they deliver. You're going to hate me for saying this, but Sam is available morning, noon and night, and you really are an extension of our team and all of your team. So, it's brilliant working with you. I know the relationship you've got with myself and Richard is just brilliant. So, and then lastly, it's future proofing that you're going to help us do and work with us on enhancing our website, which will help conversion rates and customer journey. So all those things combined has really helped in our recovery and obviously future proofing us for longevity.
Definitely, and on behalf of Profitroom, we love working like that as well, and it's great to have such a partnership. We also know that you've got some exciting news as well. So did you want to share more around that?
Yeah, I think so. Have we got some slides?
Yeah,
I think we have, haven't we? Just a couple. Yeah. Yeah. So we just so one of the things that obviously we were in the process of building the business here. So lots of things went into lockdown, including our building projects. When we closed the doors in March. So one of the things that the growth and the demand has enabled us to do is to pick this up again. So all of the building projects that we put on hold, I've actually instructed already. So the one that you're just looking at there is Leopard Creek. So these are going to be 5-star units. The wigwam on the right hand side there, that's actually 9 meters tall. So it's a huge structure. We're going to have 7 of these down at Leopard Creek, and obviously the name gives it away. You'll be living next to leopards, and that's going to fit in with our kind of Lion Lodge, Tiger Lodge experience. So those are the experiences that go at the kind of plus 1,000 ADR bracket night. So Leopard Creek will be open for Easter next year, whereas in reality, when we locked down, we probably thought we may not be able to instruct that being finished until Easter next year. But that's one of the advantages of where we are at the moment. So that's one of our developments. I think the next one is, yeah, this is quite an exciting one. You can just see France in the background if you look closely. But this is a 15th century Wealden house, which has 10 bedrooms in it, and we have a development here which is going to be called Giraffe Hall. So planning permission has been gained for that, and as the name suggests, you'll be living in your bedroom or staying in your bedroom, and then the giraffes will be allowed to wander up, and you'll be able to feed them out of the windows and what have you. So that has got it's quite a difficult project. So that's got 2 years to go before it will open. But with the developments on site there, we're going to have a new restaurant and a social canopy there, and some pods in the accommodation pods in the gardens. There'll be an extra 15 units of accommodation there, and again, it's going to be aimed at that price point at the £1,000 per night bracket. It's quite unique, obviously. We've got a bubble. There's another bubble coming, which we've instructed, and that will, for stargazers and exhibitionists, that plays out quite well. And then we're putting some more forest hideaways and pods in, which sort of plays into our sort of glamping end of the market. So we've got 81 units of accommodation here at the moment in 13 different styles, and our master planning takes us to about 126 units in 17 different styles within the next 2 years. So yeah, I mean, we were all a bit upset that, you know, we weren't able to get on with these things, and no idea how long it'd be before we could recommence them. But, you know, everybody's pleased and motivated now that we've got these things on the go again. I think
Definitely.
that's
That might be an interesting point for lots of people listening, actually, because I know a lot of hotels and resorts might have had investment plans at the beginning of the year, and maybe extensions like yourself to get more short breaks. What advice would you give? Obviously you've restarted those projects again to get them back up and running. Do you have any advice for the people listening there?
I'm sure there's lots of very, very experienced operators that know exactly what they're doing on this call. But I mean, we just had to be very sure about our cash flows. That's the one thing that we had to be certain about. Well, we did get the advantage of taking out a 2 million COVID loan from the British Business Bank, or from Barclays, essentially. So that kind of saw us through. But in reality, we wouldn't have needed it. But yeah, unless you're certain about your cash flow, then you can't really commence these kind of projects. And there's still uncertainty, of course. You know, we've no idea what will happen. For us, the seasonality of our business is very much that when we get past the October half term, there is less risk for us until next summer, and you know, we'd be able to manage that. So, as I said earlier, this is very much about, you know, carefully managing this business through the next 8 to 10 weeks, and if we can do that, then, you know, we're pretty confident about the future, notwithstanding what's going on in the world.
Yeah, of course, definitely. And then finally, it would be great to hear about how your short breaks fit into your overall aims of Aspinall. So I'm not alone in reading about the teachers, but perhaps you can explain actually what the revenue side of the short breaks, how it impacts Aspinall Foundation overall.
Well, let me give you 30 seconds, and then I'll let Sam talk about Sabra and Naira, who you can see on the screens there, because she's spent an awful lot more time talking to people about them than I have. So we are a charity, and our purpose is to breed endangered species and then send them back to the wild. Because we're a charity, our admission income is VAT-free, so that has been that helps us, and we also are able to gift aid all of that as well. So because one of the situations with COVID was that people had to book before they came, that wasn't the case generally with the day ticket visitors. So now that they all have to book online, none of them untick the gift aid box. So when they turn up at the gate, it's quite difficult to get gift aid off them. So little things like that probably put $500,000 on our bottom line this year, because they just don't untick the gift aid box. But as a business, as an organisation structure, anything we make here in the parks essentially can then be gift aided up to the top co, which is the Aspinall Foundation. And then whatever they end up with in terms of cash, so it very much an integrated business. Whatever they end up with, they are then able to spend on the projects that we run in Madagascar, Congo, Gabon, Indonesia, and South Africa. And one of the latest projects that we've done is the rewilding of these two cheetahs, which I'll just let Sam tell you about.
So these are two brothers, Saba and Nairo. So Saba was hand-reared over at our wildlife park at Howlett, and Nairo was raised with his mum over at Port Lympne. Back in February this year, we sent them back to South Africa. So they started their journey in a place called Ashia, which is a reserve where they were getting fed. And then about 2 months ago, they moved to Mount Pendlebury, which is a hunting reserve. So we're closely monitoring the boys. They're learning how to hunt. And just last week, they both successfully hunted for the first time. So that's really exciting. And then we hope in a couple of months' time, they'll be able to make their journey. So at the moment, they're in about a 7,000 hectare area. It's cost us over 100,000 to make sure that they're looked after, sent over. And, you know, this goes back to our mission, where possible, we believe that all animals should go back to the wild. And excitingly, they were introduced to a female cheetah a couple of weeks ago. And bearing in mind, it's a 7,000 hectare area, she sniffed the boys out in the first day. So hopefully we'll have some big cheetah news coming up. So the story's unfolding. It's really exciting, and we'd love to send some more details if anyone would be interested in supporting the boys further in their journey. So
yeah, and one of what we do here as well is, you know, Sam joined me here in January, and clearly, you know, had only just got her feet under the desk before we then had to manage lockdown. I've only been here a year, so there's quite a journey to go here in terms of integrating the messaging that what we do as a conservation charity into the fabric of what we do as a leisure destination as well. So there's an awful lot of low-hanging fruit for us to work on. But yeah, I think this was the first ever rewilding of hand-reared cheetahs, or cheetahs born in captivity, anywhere in the world. So yeah, we've got lots more projects like this on the go and in the background.
So as soon as the travel restrictions are lifted, we've got two boys waiting and gorillas waiting at Howlett to go back to Africa. So that'll probably be our next big news story as soon as travel restrictions are lifted, and they will join the sort of 70 plus that we've helped rehouse back to the wild in Africa. So yeah, lots more stories coming out.
Fantastic. It's beautiful to hear those stories as well, and to show actually how guests coming to visit you, you know, really helps the rehoming of these animals. Jane, do we have time for any questions? Are there any questions we have from the audience?
There are a few questions, mostly comments about the beautiful animals, actually, if I'm honest. Just one question here about the booking process if people want to come and stay. Is it all via your website? That's you mentioned that's how it's working now. Do you use any agents?
Book via website, and there is a phone number that you can call if you'd like to speak to someone. We've tried to make the website as easy as possible to use, but again, there are 81 units, and if you do want to be talked through, happily the team will talk you through that. So yeah, online or give the team a shout.
Brilliant. But actually, I don't think we have got time for any more questions, but I think we can quite happily say to our audience today, to the delegates attending, that if you do have any, we will get back to you afterwards. But I think we should make maybe an update about the cheetahs and the leopards and the giraffes a part of our newsletter, because I think that's absolutely fascinating. It's brilliant. And whilst maybe not strictly relevant from a financial aspect for your average hotelier, very interesting. So I think we are at 29 minutes past 11. So if we're going to stick to the hour, it's just left to me now to say thank you, and just to talk about the figures and the bits and pieces that Sam from Profit Room presented. They are Profit Room's view on it. They shouldn't be assumed to be right for every situation, but they are very good at creating some lovely reports. So more information on those is available either coming direct to me, and I can put you on to Samantha, or Profit Room themselves. But a big thank you to the two Samanthas and to Tony, whose history goes back with HOSPA and Baha a very long time, as I keep exploring, keep finding out. But thank you for sharing your experiences and your news today. It's really appreciated. You can find recordings of all the recent HOSPA webinars with a summary of the key points on our website, and this one should be posted within the next 24 hours or so. And whilst you're on our website, you can also check the events section for any future webinars. But thank you very much for listening and for talking to us today, Samantha and Tony, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you very much and goodbye.